I closed 55 wholesale deals in my first year in the business, and I made over $400,000 in profit doing it. I'm 20 years old and I started with 61 cents in my bank account when I was 18 years old. And I did all of this in one market using one marketing channel. And people think you need a huge team in the beginning or hundreds of thousands of dollars just to land your first deal. And simply you don't. And in this video, I'm breaking down exactly where every single deal came from, what I spent to get them, my biggest wins, my worst mistakes, and the one shift that took me from grinding with nothing to closing deals consistently. Because that one thing is the last piece that absolutely nobody in this industry is talking about. Let's get into it. I closed my first deal wholesaling April 2024, and from then until April 2025, we have closed on 55 wholesale deals. Whether it was land or properties, we closed on all of them. I'm not any different than any of you guys. You guys might think that you don't have enough money to start, but I'll literally show you guys a screenshot right here that on February 12th, 2024, I had 61 cents to my name. This is a literal screenshot of this. The first deal, just like for everybody, it came by sort of luck, right? I was literally in Tulum when a lead that I had called back in January when I didn't really know what I was doing hit me up saying, hey, I really need to sell my property now. I know you called me back in January. I didn't accept that offer, but I'm willing to accept it now. So what happened? This property was in Fort Myers, Florida. I'll post the address of it somewhere over here. Now, we had this under contract for $100,000, which is what the seller was gonna walk away with from the deal. And I partnered up with my buddy Luca, who was already in the wholesaling space, and we found a buyer for $112,000. Me and him split the profits 50-50, and that $2 extra thousand went to the agent of the buyer for just making sure everything ran smoothly. Now, obviously at that time, making $5,000 in a single day off a property I've never stepped foot in, I've never seen, and I didn't really know what was going on in there, felt amazing. I felt like I hit the jackpot. And that's when I knew that I finally had proof of concept and it was time to actually start ripping. We've gone to the point where today our average assignment fees are $17,000, which means that on every single deal we close, we expect to make about $17,000 on the deal. Now, this doesn't just happen overnight. At first, I was the one cold calling. I was the one making the offers. I was the one finding the buyers. I was the one doing everything inside the business just to make sure we had some sort of money coming in. And today we've gone to the point where we actually are making over 200,000 calls every single month because I'm not doing the cold calling anymore. That breaks down into having a team of cold callers, a team of acquisition reps, a team of dispo reps. And I'm just over there managing the entire business from above. I'm working on the business instead of in the business. Now, don't get me wrong. There are still deals that I'm doing the dirty work for them. For example, we have a deal right now in Houston locked up for $1.6 million. And we have a buyer who is about to submit a letter of intent for $1.7 million, which means that we're gonna make $100,000 on this deal. But I'm gonna be the one handling everything during this process because this is a very complicated deal. By making 200,000 calls every single month, we try and get out about 3 to 5 offers every single day. That's the standard I have set for my team. Now, out of those, how many turn into contracts? Well, we aim for 1 every other day. About 3 to 5 contracts a week is a great week for us. And out of those, how many close? We have about a 50% close rate. So if we actually get the deal under contract and everything is clean and we know we have it at the right number, we're very confident in finding a buyer for the transaction because we know buyers everywhere. We've done enough deals to where even if I can't find a buyer, I know someone who knows someone who will buy this property. But there are still things you can't control. For example, we had this deal in Richland Park, Illinois, where we were 1 day away from the closing table and a $60,000 lien popped up. There's nothing you can do in this situation other than kill the deal. Our biggest deal to date was a property that we had under contract for $400,000 and we found a buyer for $450,000. It was this deal right over here. Now, we made $50,000 in profit on this deal. But not every deal is like this, right? I mean, we've had deals where we've made $2,000, just like on this land deal in Florida. The real numbers aren't always pretty, but they're real. And that's what you're not getting from most people in the space. Okay, here's where all of our deals actually come from. It really breaks down into 3 simple steps. Number 1 is our cold calling. To date, 80% of our deals came from cold calling. The other 20% were a text campaign we've tried and JVs, joint ventures. Cold calling is our bread and butter. It's what we roll with. For people who say cold calling doesn't work, they're simply lying to you guys. The whole world cold calls. But what stood out from us than other companies, and essentially our unique mechanism, was that we focused on one market and really only stuck to the one marketing channel that worked for us, which was our cold calling. That's what pocketed wholesaling is all about. While everybody out there is calling 5 different states, 16 different counties, and 38 different zip codes, we're really focusing on one state, 1 to 2 counties, and and maybe 5 to 8 different zip codes. A very small pocket in big cities where we have buyers fighting over our deals. But at the end of the day, we don't have to deal with 95% of the competition with other wholesaler companies that are spending hundreds of thousands of dollars a month on leads. That breaks down our lead cost and our average profit up on every single deal that we do. Here's what the cold calling process actually looks like. It's very, very simple. You're gonna pull a list from any state you wanna be in. From there, you're gonna narrow down that list into the exact counties or zip codes that you wanna be in. That was our biggest advantage in the entire cold calling process. I didn't just pull a list for the state of Illinois. I really narrowed it down not only by counties like Cook County, but I narrowed it down even more by zip codes like 60411, 60636, different zip codes that I knew were significant pockets where a lot of buyers were looking for deals in those areas. But because I focused on one singular area, knew that I would just take over that entire market. Once you pull a list, it either comes already skip traced, or you're just gonna have to skip trace the records yourself. And then you get to dialing. Now, if you're the one who's gonna be making these cold calls, a list of 5,000 records is more than enough for you, because it's gonna take you time to get through all of those people and get into the follow-ups and make sure that you actually get the most out of every single list you call. But if you have cold callers calling for you, what you can use is something called a triple line dialer. A platform like Ready Mode is great for this. Once you have your cold callers call for you, and they're not the ones actually talking and getting the numbers out of the leads, they're doing the simple, dirty work for you. They're just filtering out the people who don't want to sell with the people who do want to sell. And then you and your acquisition team actually focus on the people who want to sell their homes. So a cold call should look something like this. Hey, Mr. Seller, my name is X, Y, and Z. I'm from this company. We're just calling out of the blue to see if you're looking to sell that property on 123 Main Street. If they say yes, perfect, you have a lead. If they say no, on to the next. Now, this is where you come into play. It's all about qualifying the lead, and it really breaks down into 4 simple steps. You want to focus on the timeline, condition, motivation, and asking price of every single lead you talk to. If you have those 4 details, you can close on any single wholesale deal, and you can make an educated offer. That way you're not wasting your time and locking up deals that are just not gonna sell, but you're also not wasting the seller's time and ruining your company reputation by locking up deals. This isn't some glamorous AI system that makes thousands of calls for you and automatically you have thousands of leads booked and you start making hundreds of thousands of dollars. You have to do the dirty work before you actually get to see the reward. But this is where all of our deals live. Step number 2 is the follow-up. 60% of the 80 deals we closed with cold calling came from our follow-up. We didn't have leads come into the system and boom, we automatically closed them right away, right? We had a ton of leads that just didn't need to sell at the moment or just didn't feel ready to sell. For example, we had a ton of leads in Illinois that weren't ready to sell during November, December, January, February because it was negative 30 degrees all 4 months and they don't want to move out when it's cold. But now that April, May came along, we're filled up with contracts because everybody is looking to sell their property. Here's the biggest thing. Price is always negotiable, motivation isn't, right? So if a seller has motivation to sell their property, you can work with that. If they don't have motivation to sell the property, there's really nothing you can do. But the price, you can always work on that. Whatever the seller tells you is their bottom line, I promise you, is not their bottom line. The follow-ups is where most wholesalers bleed deals, and they don't even know it, right? My first even deal came from a lead that I had called 2 months previous and I completely forgot about because I had no systems in place, and he randomly called me out the blue in March saying, hey, I want to sell now, because now was the right time for him to sell. Your CRM should be doing follow-ups while you sleep. If it isn't, you're simply just leaving money on the table. And step number 3 is simply your buyer's network. Whether it's JVing or having your own personal buyers, at the end of the day, you're not gonna make any money if you lock up a deal but you can't move it. For all I care, I could lock up 1,000 deals tomorrow, but if I don't have the buyer for those deals, we're not gonna make a single dollar on any of them. When it comes to JVing, some deals come from other wholesalers who need a buyer, which is where you can make good profit at first, but on the other flip side, you might be having the deals under contract and needing someone else to find you a buyer. The best thing about this is that it costs $0 in marketing. You can make $20,000 from a single deal and have a $0 ad cost. That $20,000 can be pure profit. If someone came to you saying, hey, I need a buyer for this property, do you have one? And you find him a buyer, you're gonna go 50-50 on the deal. So you're gonna make just as much money as the person who locked up the deal, but you're not gonna have a single dollar in spend. It's gonna be 100% profit, unlike him, where he has to cover his marketing, he has to cover his acquisition team. So JVs are a great way to build your buyers network at first, keep those buyers private to yourself for later, so you don't have to JV with people when you start locking up deals. But at first, it's a great way to make money because you have no marketing costs, no ad spend, no nothing like that, and you keep 100% of the profits. And if this is all clicking with you and you're wondering, how did I manage to do this myself? This is exactly the reason why I built Fast Flips Academy. I have nailed my process and my systems to such a T that we even guarantee that you land your first deal in the next 60 days. Because inside, we break down the exact systems that my business uses on a daily basis, and we just implement it into yours. From lead lists to scripts, essentially everything we use to turn our conversations into contracts. It's a tight-knit program where we talk daily, host group calls, and one-to-one calls multiple times every single week with people who are actively building their wholesale business. So if you want coaching, real-world resources, and a community of killers, just check out the link below. A lot of people forget to pay attention to actually what goes into running a wholesale business. How much money are you going to need upfront to have your systems dialed and have leads coming for you? Well, it's really about 5 to 6 things you're only gonna need. First is gonna be your data and your list pulling. Assuming at first you're working with a list of 10,000 people and addresses at once. The data and the skip tracing of that is gonna cost you about $150. If you're the one making the calls, you're not even going to need a dialer. If you want, you can get Go High Level and you can use it. It's $97 a month. You can make calls off there. But if you have VAs calling for you, them doing the dirty work, them filtering out the no's versus the yeses, and you only handling and dealing with people who actually want to sell their property, a dialer is going to cost you about $200 a month. Your CRM, as I said, I use Go High Level. There's many others. That costs me $97 every single month. When it comes to other tools and subscriptions, there really aren't any. I don't use much AI in my business, so I guess you could say Claude for $20 a month. But your biggest other expense is going to be paying your cold caller. I pay my cold callers $4 an hour. They work 4 hours a day, so that's $16 a day times 5. They each make $80 a week. So if you have a cold caller working for you 20 days a month, working for 4 hours a day, that's going to cost you about $320 every single month. So let's assume you have a cold caller in this situation, and we used all of our other tools. You're at about $800 to $1,000 a month in full marketing spend. That's what everything is going to cost you to have this business fully functioning. One wholesale deal on the low end is going to make you $5,000. So you just made 5x your money on one single deal. And that's assuming you only close one out of those 10,000 people that you called that month. Anyone telling you that you can start wholesaling real estate for free is sort of lying, right? Because at the end of the day, you can call for sale by owner on Zillow, but you're not gonna see any real results. And if you are, it's just gonna delay the process by months where you could have already been making real significant money with a wholesaling business. Now let's break down one of my favorite deals we ever got to work on. This was a deal that I partnered up with my buddy Luca, as I stated earlier. We made $35,000 on this deal. Now obviously, split 2 ways, we made $17,500 each on this deal. It was a property in Fort Myers. This was the address right here. Now from time of making contact with the seller to actually getting the wire hit our bank account, it took us about 21 days. And it broke down really simply like this. We had the seller under contract for $200,000. Once our buyer walked the property, he came in at $235,000. We found a buyer for that property within 7 days. It was a very desirable area of Fort Myers, a lot of investor activity, and overall it was really easy to just get the deal done. Now, a week later, we hit the title company up, Suncoast Title Company over in Florida. We work with them a ton. They're great. Free shout out. They got us title back in about 7 days on this. So we're right now 14 days in, but there was one lien that showed up on the property. The seller hadn't paid her water bill in 6 months. But the best thing about working with a title company that you already know is that they help you figure out solutions. So they called the water company for us and they asked if this 6-month water bill can be paid out of the seller's closing. They said yes, and after about 3 to 4 days, we were able to close on the property. So 21 days in, it's a Friday. I go to Romania the next morning, and on my way to the airport, I get a wire for the full amount. That deal alone made me realize that essentially I can wholesale from anywhere in the world. All I really need is to just lock in on the business for 2 to 4 hours a day, but it doesn't matter if I'm in Bali, Afghanistan, or in the US. I could literally do it from anywhere. I mean, as I was saying, I was going to Romania, and that was probably the craziest summer of my life. It was my first time making money and actually having my own money to spend. Me and a buddy of mine started our businesses at the same time, and we told ourselves that summer 2025, we would be backstage for Kind of Music anywhere in the world. And if you tell me that we actually made that happen, that little goal that meant so much to us we made it happen, I would not believe you. But in Romania, we went backstage, we were at Kind of Music, we had the best table, and it was a night I'll never forget. We flew people out, we had a great week. The business running while I'm in Europe isn't the real flex here, right? It's really that the systems I've built are able to keep on running on their own while I'm not inside of the business. But it's not all positive. There was a point after I stopped playing Division I basketball at Sacred Heart University where I almost came back to college to play basketball. I was in Belgrade, Serbia for 4 months just trying to make something happen. I was building something. But honestly, I realized I was building with nothing. No basketball, no team. I was just doing whatever I thought was right. I had no safety net. My parents thought I lost my mind, and honestly, some days I sided with them. I believed them. I thought I did too. The moment that changed everything for me was that call I received in Tulum. But I had to stay long enough in the business to receive that call. Early on, you're going to be chasing a ton of unmotivated sellers, spending weeks and a ton of your time on people who said, I might be looking to sell in about 6 to 8 weeks from now. Or people telling you, sure, just shoot me an offer, I'll sell for the right price. You're losing on time that you could have been dealing with real people who actually have motivation to get rid of their property. Every hour you spend on someone who's not actually looking to sell is an hour that you could have spent on someone who actually is. We've had a ton of deals fall through. It's a part of the game. If anyone tells you that they have a 100% close rate, they're just lying to you. For example, we've had this deal fall through in Richmond Park. We've had this deal just fall through last week in Florida because the seller couldn't find her death certificates for her 3 brothers. On the Richmond Park deal in Chicago, we were gonna make $20,000 on it, and it fell off right before we were gonna close. I almost felt the money. And this deal in Florida, it wasn't any huge profit. It was a $2,000 profit deal we were gonna make, but it fell off and it was an easy close. Just we got lucky with a seller who didn't know how to use Google, didn't know how to find death certificates, and that her brothers actually passed away about 40 years ago, so she just simply doesn't have the death certificate. There are some things that you simply can't control, so your biggest focus should be control what you can. Here's the one thing nobody actually talks about. The shift that actually changed my business wasn't some new script or a new software. It was that I stopped spreading myself too thin across multiple different markets in the country and multiple different marketing channels, and I really focused and dialed in on one singular area. One market, one channel. It's called pocketed wholesaling. When you do that, something happens. The market learns your game. The market starts adapting to you. Sellers recognize your name. Buyers know to call you when they need some new deal. You're not starting over every single month in a new area. You're compounding. I had 55 deals in year 1, not because I worked in 10, 15 different markets, but because I owned one singular area. This is exactly why I built Fast Flips Academy. Everything I just broke down. The list pulling, the cold calling system, how to underwrite deals and make offers, and how to move your contracts and actually sell them to buyers. That's what we built together inside. We go live multiple times a week. I give real deal feedback, and you get access to my buyers network from day 1. The link is in the description. You might be asking yourself, Daniel, if you've closed 55 deals in year 1, what are you focused on now? Well, what we're focused on now is essentially just tightening our systems, making them even better, and going deeper into that market. Going and expanding our areas a little bit by a little bit every single time. I'm not talking about going from a market in California to a market in Florida, but I'm talking about expanding our zip codes, adding a little bit more, and going deeper into the current market that we know how to navigate so well. The goal isn't more markets, it's having more depth in the current market you're already working in. Year 2 looks way different than year 1, and I'm going to show you exactly what that looks like as it happened. 55 deals, one market, one channel, and 61 cents in my bank account when I first started. If you're trying to close your first deal or you've been stuck for months, I've proven that the system works. The question is whether you're going to commit to it long enough to actually find out for yourself. If you want to see exactly how that cold calling system works from start to finish, that video is right here. I'll see you guys in the next one.